He has spoken on the topics faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J. Loren Norris.
If you've ever seen those people who they really dig into a project, I mean, they give it everything they have, but usually kind of behind the scenes. I mean, they want to work on the project before anybody knows they're working on the project. They want to get it all tightened up. They want it to look just right and sound just right and smell just right and feel just right. They don't want anybody to see all the effort they've put into it until it's perfect. Until it's absolutely perfect. There can't be any flaws. There can't be any competition that's even close to it. It has to be perfect. And then they'll release it. That's a recipe for failure. It's a recipe for failure. And if you're a leader and you have not yet recognized the difference between excellence and perfection, stay tuned, because that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And I want you to know there are a lot of people who their failure doesn't rest in the fact that they didn't take action. The failure rests in the fact that the action they took couldn't drive results because the world never saw it. They never took their perfect toy out of the box. They never exposed it to the world. Maybe it was through marketing, maybe it was through the release of the book or the delivery of the speech or the production of the video or whatever it was. They started with a desire for absolute perfection, and because that was their hope, they delivered nothing. The world never saw their greatest imagination. It just died on the vine, if you will. Now, at the same time, there are leaders who have this notion that the people who they lead, the people they serve as leader, are going to be perfect. And they're not. Nope. Never going to happen. Perfect humans? No, they don't exist. There was one, gone. Yeah. None left. No perfect humans left. They don't communicate perfectly. They don't do the job perfectly. They don't study perfectly. They don't listen perfectly. They don't speak perfectly. None of it. There is no perfection left in humans. And if that's what you're waiting for the next employee hire, for the next wide receiver or quarterback, for the next tennis star, for the next speaking champion, for the next spouse, business partner, employee, graphic designer, web page designer, technical assistant. If that's what you're looking for, you're on a fool's errand. The perfect ones are gone. Gone. Period. So what do you do now that you know that for sure? Well, the truth is there's actually something you can do as a leader. You can expect not perfection, but instead excellence. See, excellence says, I know what the task is, I know how to perform the task, and I am going to do the very best that I can do. I won't accept substandard. I won't accept subpar. I won't quit before I'm finished. I won't give up before the job is done. I won't deliver mediocre. I won't quietly quit. I won't bow out when the going gets tough. I won't leave when my feelings get hurt. Excellence says I am going to stay at this until I give you everything I have to make it the best I can do. Now I realize, as a leader, here's the problem. There's this perceived enormous gap between what you believe as the leader you could do if you were doing the task and whoever else is doing it is. I know, I'm guilty. I've done the same thing. I've handed off a task or delegated it to somebody, and it comes back and I'm looking at it going, like a dog who hears a funny sound. What happened here? I wouldn't have done it like that, and I wouldn't have done it that way, and I certainly wouldn't have put those colors in there. Oh my gosh, what were you thinking? See, here's the problem with that. I'm measuring their level of excellence against my expectations of perfect or my skill set, my level of excellence. As a leader, that's a fail. As a leader, that's a fail. Now, what in the world are you going to do with that if you've got 100 employees or 1,000 employees or 10,000 employees and every one of them is delivering excellence to their ability and it's meeting less than your expectations? You have a problem now, right? Well, yeah, it's called a gap. It's the gap between what you thought you were going to get, what you would have got if you'd done it yourself. Let me step aside for a second. How many times have you been in that place where you ask someone to perform a task? In your head, you've already walked through every single step of it. You know exactly what it would take. In fact, you might have already done that thing a bazillion times. And you know there's 6 steps to it. And if you do these in this order, it's going to be really easy. It's going to be really fast. It's not that big a deal. It's not that complicated. But step number 2, they've never done and you've never explained. And so you're setting that person up for failure. The very best they can do is limited by the knowledge you never gave them. Guilty, done that. See, what's really hard is then you reach that point where, and yeah, I'm still in the aside, you reach that point where your expectation of excellence is based on your past performance and not theirs. And the shortcoming is that you haven't trained them to do that. And so half the time you say, you know what, I'll just do it myself. And you dismiss their ability, their talents, their knowledge, their willingness, their effort, their work ethic. You dismiss all of that because of the laziness to train them. If, as a leader, you find yourself on a regular basis in that place where you're thinking half the people on my team could be replaced by one more me, you're the failure. As a leader, you have failed to prepare them to succeed in your absence. Get over yourself, slow the roll just a minute, and take the time to train them to do what right now you believe you're the only one who can do. And if the people that you need to fill that role, after you've trained them properly, are still incompetent, you've got the wrong team. Rebuild your team. But to hold them to your standard of excellence when you haven't prepared them for that excellence, that's a leadership failure, not a team failure. This is where we put the end of the parentheses on that little piece of the teaching, and we go back to the question, so what is the gap between perfection, the expectation that it's going to be done to my level of excellence, and whatever the team delivers? Well, here's the answer to that question. It's called grace. Yeah, grace. Grace is what fills the gap between excellence and perfection. See, I know when I do a project, when I finish an editing project, or I do a production, or we've got one coming up this week that's pretty intense, and there are only a couple of people that I would say, let me put them in the booth, and they can handle everything from the sound to the video to the light controls. They can do all that if I'm not there. And I trust them 100% to do that. In fact, some of them might even be better than me. And you know what? None of them are available. So I had to tell the client, we're going to have to increase the budget because here's what's going to happen. In order for this to come off the way you want it to come off, I'm going to have to hire 3 people to do what I would normally do outside the booth while I have one person in the booth. I'm going to have to hire 3 people to do that outside the booth stuff so I can be in the production booth the entire time. Otherwise, we're not going to deliver the level of excellence that we want to deliver. Now, again, training fail on my part, right? I should have a whole team of people who can operate to the same level. I should also have a whole team of people that don't decide it's deer season, and so we're going to go deer hunting instead of be available for somebody else's project, which would be me. But see, that gap between that level of excellence that I know that I can deliver, that I would expect of somebody else, well, that's a training gap. And the difference between perfection, or that higher level of excellence, and what is actually delivered, you ready? It's grace. It's grace. It's the ability to know, honestly, that you've given everything you've got. You've given 100%. You've done your thing to the best of your ability. As a leader, that should be my expectation. Oh, I'd love to have perfection. I would. I would love to be able to turn anybody on my team and go, I need you to do this, and I want it to look like that when it's done, and not have to explain the 6 steps between. Probably not going to happen. Now, there are people that I can send them to be trained. Just like in my life, I have coaches who coach me and challenge me and tell me when I'm wrong, and they tell me, you can't do it like that. I know that's the way you've always done it, and that's why you're not getting any further down the road than you are right now. You're going to have to change something to get better. Now, here's where you got to recognize there's a massive contrast. The standard that is perfection and the performance that is excellence, there's a gap between them. And to cover that gap as a leader, the most important thing that a leader must have to cover that gap is grace. It's the ability to say, I know you did your best, and I appreciate that. Let's up-level your training. Let's up-level your exposure. Let's up-level your ability. Let's up-level your opportunity so that the next time your best is a little closer to the target. But I'm not going to fire you, and I'm not going to chastise you, and I'm not going to call you names, and I'm not going to make fun of you, and I'm not going to ridicule you, and I'm not going to compare you to others, because I'm confident that you did the best you're capable of. And that is what I ask for as a leader. I hope for that highest level of performance. I hope for something near perfection, although I know that that on its own is an illusion. But if you're striving for that, you're my kind of teammate. You're my kind of team player. I just want to know that you've given me everything you've got. Now, here's where grace begins to run a little bit thin. When you run into that teammate who doesn't care about your standards. In fact, they might even send you an open letter and go, I don't like the way you lead. So this is our declaration of mutiny. None of us are going to do what you want done. We're going to drag our feet. We're going to hide the paperwork. We're going to lose the customer list. We're going to move things around in your Excel spreadsheet so that, I don't know, you mail stuff to the wrong people, or don't mail anything out, or you don't get checks out on time, or you don't get bills out on time, or, I don't know, you just lose your entire database because, oops, I pushed the wrong button. Yeah, all of those things have happened in big corporate America when teams lose the respect for their leader because they feel like they've been mistreated, or when teams come together and refuse to live in excellence. They've got their own agenda. They've got their own narrative going on in their head. They've got their own narrative going on in the collective, and it doesn't suit the organization. At that time, you might have to clean house. Because now you've gone to a place where you're not just dealing with the excellence, the ability, the talent, the skill, the willingness, the work ethic of one employee, but of the team. And at that point, it's time to, well, start another team. Jack Welch said on a regular basis, in fact, I believe it was in an interview with John Maxwell, Jack Welch was asked, how many leaders do you keep when you come into a new place of business? Say you come in and the money is failing and the sales are down and the products aren't delivering and everybody just kind of feels like we need a fresh start. But do you fire the CEO, or do you fire the CEO and the CFO? I mean, how far down the leadership ladder do you go before you decide, well, that leader's worth keeping? Jack's answer was profound, challenging, Hurtful, I'm sure, to those on the other end of it, but profound. He said, I fire all of them. Because the truth is, if they were competent, and if they were operating in excellence and doing the very best that they could do, and if they had any leadership qualities at all, including simply the ability to influence the people at their own level, then the problem they've brought me in to solve wouldn't exist. If they knew what the problem was and how to fix it, I wouldn't be here. Hence, they're not competent enough to keep. If they can't fix the problem without me here, I don't need them here to slow me down fixing the problem. That's a pretty profound thought. That's also kind of when you get to the end of grace, when you've given every opportunity for those to operate in excellence who will operate in excellence, and you've found that you have a mutiny among your team who says, we just can't or we just won't do it right. We won't put in any more effort. We've kind of got our comfy zone, and this is where we're going to stay. If that's where you're at as a leader, if that's where your team is at as an organization, it might be time to clean house and start over. Or ask yourself as a leader, how have I, in what ways, what have I personally done as a leader to manifest this kind of behavior and attitude and opinion, not only toward myself, but toward the ongoing value of the organization? See, when people are sold out to the vision of the organization, their vision demands excellence from them because they see what the end product will be. They know what the results are going to be, and they're sold out to that idea. They know that if we pull this off, man, we could change the world. We'll have the best product, widget, service in the world. Nobody in the world can compete with us. Well, that means employment security. That means company opportunity security. That means if I were to take what I've learned here and spin off into my own business, I have entrepreneurial opportunity abounding. People who are not sold out to the vision, they get into that little comfy zone and, well, they're getting a paycheck and they kind of like what they do and, well, they really enjoy those people in the other three cubes next to them, and so they'll show up, but they're not really going to sacrifice anything. They really don't want to stay that 2.5 minutes after. They're the ones that rush to the time clock and wait for it to click before they punch out. They want to milk every minute out of the time clock, but they're not staying overtime. And they're not giving up a weekend, and they're not going to sacrifice any hours. And heaven forbid they share an idea with you that's new to them that they think could make them a millionaire outside of your business. They don't want to invest in the business, those extras. They just want to do what they have to do to get by, to get the minimum, to get the paycheck, to keep the security, to stay in their comfy zone. Because they're not sold out to your vision. And that is a leadership fail. Maybe you're not directly in contact with these people. They're 4, 5, 6 layers deep. But as a leader, you better be observant. You've got to know that perfectionism is an illusion. No one is perfect. Those people are gone. There was only one. He's gone. He's just gone. So don't expect perfect. But expect and demand excellence. All I want from you is the very best you can do. And if we find that your very best falls short of our expectations, we will train you up. We will prepare you better. Or we'll acknowledge along with you that this isn't the right job for you. Maybe there's another one in the organization. Maybe there's not. But if you're constantly giving it all you've got and you can't do it, I don't see myself with no cartilage in my knees and well over my ideal weight at 20 years old running a 45-second 400, which I've done in the past. I've run the 10K in under 5 minutes. I'm not going to do that again at my age. To set that expectation, be a little steep, a little unrealistic. If the job that you have for me requires running a 10K in under 5 minutes, you got the wrong guy at this point. Pick somebody else. I've got to be realistic and acknowledge that. But when I can acknowledge that, we're good to go. We're golden, right? That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that person who says, I gave it everything I had, but truly they were sabotaging your organization. I gave it everything I had, but they really knew where they left off, cut corners, hid the stuff under the carpet, swept it under the rug, so to speak. Those are the people you need to clean house. You need to get them out of here. If you know that they're competent and they're sold out to your vision, but the job they're in right now isn't their best talent and skill put to use, find another position for them. Leave it like this. John Maxwell says we tend to hire people for what they know and then fire them for who they are. We hire them for what they know, but we fire them for who they are. What does that mean? If we started with hiring character and then trained their aptitude, start with attitude, train to aptitude, you're going to have a whole lot better team. And excellence can be your target in everything if you hire for attitude and train for aptitude. A leader's got to know the difference between perfection, which is an illusion, and excellence, which should be your base expectation. If you do, then you also know that grace is what covers the gap between the highest level of excellence and true perfection. Nobody's going to reach it. Have grace for that. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.